Here. This brings us to the President's report. Welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining us at this 8 p.m. start. But I had the pleasure this month of sitting in on an APT meeting and a Spirit of 67 meeting in addition to the grants meetings that are occurring. And I just really wanted to take a moment to thank all of the parents and teachers who dedicate their time and spend time on these committees. I think we have such wonderful resources in our parents, and the things that they bring, the breadth of knowledge, the insight, the comments and questions that they ask that really help us in our process of making better decisions via the input that they provide us. So thanks to all of the volunteers, and I know there's many administrators who attend the meetings as well, and the teachers also who take time out of their schedules to really help the district improve. So thanks to all the volunteers. That brings us to the superintendent's report.
All right, Madam President, members of the board, and audience, thank you for being here tonight. I guess I need to first mention that tonight represents the kickoff of the City of Lake Forest 150th birthday activities, and it began with a little skit among the founding fathers of Lake Forest, the City of Lake Forest, and I was asked if I would participate because one of the founding fathers was a gentleman named Samuel Miller, who was the engineer that designed the first bridge over the Chicago River in the city of Chicago. And he also was the chief construction engineer for the first railroad that came through the city of Lake Forest, and then moved to Lake Forest and became the first school superintendent in 1861, and also prior to that had been the headmaster of Lake Forest Academy from 1858 to 1861. So I just came from that event. I apologize, but do thank everyone for being understanding that it delayed our meeting till approximately this time. There'll be many activities throughout the year, celebrating the 150th year, 1861 to 2011 in Lake Forest, and our own district, 67, which was originally a part of the original charter of 1861. And in fact, the city of Lake Forest's first teacher was from a very famous family in actually a very famous American family. The first teacher hired in the history of District 67 was a girl named Rebecca Beecher. Rebecca Beecher's aunt was Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote the most widely read book of the 19th century when you don't count the Bible. It was actually the most read book in the world in the 19th century. And her father, Edward Beecher, was president of Princeton College, who moved to Illinois to found the first college in the history of the state of Illinois, known as Illinois College. Later on, it became known as Knox College. And his daughter, Rebecca, was hired by Lake Forest to be our first teacher. So among the many distinguished teachers that we've had in Lake Forest and continue to have in our schools, I think we began with a really wonderful start. And I want to, again, thank everyone. And just finally mention that the Spirit of 67, in cooperation with the celebration for the 150th birthday, actually now has 2 historic homes that will be on the home tour on May 5th. So please get everybody who would ever see this, get ready for May 5th, because these are homes that have actually, I don't recall, have ever been opened. These are very famous old homes of Lake Forest. So congratulations to the Spirit of 67 for being able to make this a part of not only the fundraising for our schools, but also for the celebration of Lake Forest's 150th anniversary. Board members, I just have for you that all of our schools in District 67 have been recognized by the state of Illinois, called the Academic Excellence Award, and this is awarded to schools who have 90% or better of its students meeting or exceeding reading and mathematics state standards over a 3-year period. We're very proud of that. This is an award we've been receiving every year. this is the time for that. Two last things. The art gallery is changing downstairs. I have a little clip here that Kyle provided for me. And let's see, I think I might have. We have a rotating art gallery downstairs at 300 South Waukegan Road. We call it, this was Kyle Schumacher's term, Gallery 300. And so it's a fine art presentation. We're now rotating our 5th and 6th grade students into the art show. So if anyone here tonight, when you leave, just go on out the kind of the old way. We used to come up and down, and you can walk right through the art gallery. But this will be on display until March 1st. Throughout the day, anyone can come by and see the art gallery. There's going to be a reception. Kyle, is this on here, the reception? Will be. There'll be a later reception for the spring. Oh, okay. There'll be a spring reception for our artists. And then finally, I'm very pleased to announce that the 2011 Outstanding Administrator Award, annually put on by the Illinois Music Educators Association, is none other than our own Kyle Schumacher. This is a wonderful award. Congratulations, Kyle Schumacher. Very proud of you, Kyle. Kyle went to Peoria, I think, it's a very large convention of music educators from maybe among the largest in the state that's annually held. And our own music teachers nominated Kyle, and we're there to see him win this award too. So congratulations again. And that concludes the superintendent's report. I'm sorry. That's everything.
Thank you, Dr. Griffith. Are you going to sing for us tonight, or Kyle Schumacher? No? No?
Down in the gallery. If it's a tenor piece, I'll join you.
This brings us to the public participation portion of our agenda. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to address the board on a topic or an item not already on our agenda? Seeing none, we will move to our reports. Dr. Griffith?
Okay, I think our first report up is going to be our world language report from Dr. Andy Hendrickson, who's going to do a quick overview of world languages in our district, but also board members to further acquaint you with a pilot program that our education committee has reviewed. You'll hear a little bit more about that from our education committee report, but I'm speaking to the Immersion Mandarin program for Lake Forest District 67.
Thanks, Dr. Griffith. We've begun studying just late December after I came back from China, talking about this idea. It's been on a fast track because of interest and feasibility. Before we go on, though, I just did want to put up here, this is a real pride point for us. Our current world language program is really second to none. Illinois public schools, really even in the nation, we really shine. Beginning in 2nd grade with Latin, 3rd exploratory, 4th grade through 8th grade, pick a language, everyday language in 5th through 8th grade, 4 languages that we offer students. This is private school stuff. For a public school to do this is truly phenomenal. So I in no way want to demean what we do. But what we do is really excellent for the nation, and what we really want to do is look at the world, because this is now who we want to compete with. We want to be that world-class school district, and to do that, we need to develop bilingual students, because most of Europe and Asia, good schools there, develop bilingual students, even multilingual students. So this is the proposal, that we do a half day in English, half day in Mandarin, from kindergarten through 4th grade. We've now gone up to Michigan and seen this model in place in its 4th year in one of the school districts we visited. The students in 3rd grade are beginning to speak informally to each other in Mandarin. In Utah, where this program has been going on for 6 years, apparently really 4th grade is the time that students will begin to converse informally and show that fluency not only of understanding what they hear, reading what they write, but speaking, which is the most difficult. So this is a program that we're planning on emulating. We would do language arts and science in English. We would do math and social studies in Mandarin. Now, what does math look like in Mandarin? Well, it would be our everyday math program. So the students would see the written English material of our current program, and they would follow the same pace as our regular students. They'd still have all the opportunities for pull-out and eventually explore in 4th grade and advanced in the middle school as our regular students. But their instructor would be teaching in Mandarin. I'm sorry. So it will sound different. And if you will, I'm going to play a little video here.
Generally assume everyone speaks English.
You speak in English.
Often they exceed our expectations. Former Chinese President Jiang Zemin surprised Mike Wallace in 2000 by reciting the Gettysburg Address in English.
Foursquare and 7 years ago.
Even the French president speaks English, kind of.
We will be happy to help you make money in France.
But Americans do not generally share such multilingual talents.
I don't speak a foreign language. It's embarrassing.
Instead of struggling with foreign grammar, Americans would rather struggle with headphones to hear the translation.
可是他
But not in City Terrace Public School in East Los Angeles, where 90 students have been learning Chinese since kindergarten.
我的动物是什么？
Like his classmates, Nelson Enriquez even has his own Chinese name.
你的中文名字是什么？
我的中文的名字是韩维克。 5 years old, they're like little sponges.
Nelson's family speaks Spanish at home, so he is trilingual, which the 8-year-old is already planning to exploit.
I'm gonna get a better job and a raise.
But this is an unusual school. Across the country, only 50,000 American school kids are studying Chinese. In China, by contrast, there are 200 million students learning English. The numbers are increasing. A decade ago, about 300 schools in the US taught Chinese. Now it's close to 1,600, driven by interest in China's $6 trillion economy, now the second biggest in the world. At City Terrace, the Chinese immersion program is so popular, they have a waiting list.
Learning Chinese as a second language will help their children to be able to find a better job later on.
And then there are the hidden benefits. Why do you think your parents wanted you to learn Chinese?
I think they wanted me to learn Chinese because they like to go to Chinese restaurants.
2 languages, 2 cultures, and no one at a loss for words. Terry McCarthy, CBS News, Los Angeles.
This issue has been a bit polarizing for many parents in our community. There's been, why Chinese has been a question that I've gotten a lot. Why not Spanish if we're going to begin immersion? And I think this answers a little bit of that, but I think there are a few reasons as well. If we had asked for a Spanish immersion program first, I think we might have had 3 times as many parents interested, and yet we still want to grow this slowly. So we would really only be able to house 1 or 2 classes of this. So be it Mandarin or be it Spanish, it was kind of a toss-up in the popularity. There are grant monies available for Mandarin. Hanban, China's educational arm, wants to promote Mandarin in the United States. Less than 5% of the school districts in the United States offer a Mandarin program. We are one of them. We could potentially get more money for this program, for the startup of this program. So that's another nice piece. Just moving along here. One of the important things that we did was, and I asked Joe to come up, Joe put together a study team to look at a review of the literature, review of the research and best practices on immersion, and I wanted him to just report what his group found.
Good evening. Yeah, so as Andy said, there was a small group of us, of world language educators and two administrators, myself and Dr. Hendrickson, who are fueled by nothing but passion for language learning and Jimmy John sandwiches. And we collaborated to examine the research surrounding language acquisition, particularly language immersion. We took a divide and conquer approach, where we divided into 2 study modules. The first module regarded the foundations of language immersion. So for instance, we looked at definitions and types of language immersion. We looked at the history of language immersion, the pervasiveness of it, and also its benefits, primary benefits. The second module examined brain development and cognitive research and how that pertains to language learning. Each group drew from recent literature touching upon these topics and worked in a pair then share format. So I'd like to, actually I'm very proud to be able to represent the group with just presenting some of our most important findings. First of all, an immersion approach to language learning is not a new phenomenon and is certainly one of several viable models. As Dr. Hendrickson mentioned, we do right now have an amazing program as it stands, but immersion presents kind of a different model, and again, a very viable one. Additionally, research from multiple disciplines, for instance, neuroscience, cognitive science, and linguistics, suggests that language learning is perhaps particularly natural to children. This appears to be due to greater brain plasticity, maybe in general, but definitely when it pertains to language. Now, particularly with respect to the immersion approach, as compared to other language learning approaches, some research suggests the potential for actually attaining a higher level of proficiency, perhaps ultimately resulting in near native language outcomes, which would be what we would hope for. Meanwhile, in terms of other academic and cognitive benefits, Module 2 group was able to uncover a good deal of these that almost in and of themselves offer justification for exploring an immersion program. For instance, in terms of academics, students in immersion programs often are showing actually greater eventual outcomes in language arts in their native language and also in mathematics. Even manifested years down the line in terms of their ACT and SAT scores. Other studies have focused on cognitive impacts, and results suggest the potential for improvements in mental flexibility, creativity, problem solving, and higher order thinking skills. And then finally, at the same time, students are likely to develop an enhanced sense of openness to and appreciation of other cultures. So therefore, the language study group certainly reviewed a mountain of research in support of world language programming, and specifically pointed out the strong viability of immersion as a model to follow for language learning. Naturally, the group also showed some strong interest in the logistics of kind of how this would play out, but in terms of a big picture point of view, it's quite clear that a well-designed and implemented immersion program could bring many benefits to our students. Therefore, this is one notable instance where I feel like research really added to the excitement in the room, so I was really excited to be a part of it, so thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Well, I couldn't have said that better myself. Way to go. Talked a little bit about this. Spanish would certainly be on the heels because this program isn't so much about Mandarin or Spanish, French or Latin. It's about immersion. It's about beginning early and developing bilingual students while we continue the high-achieving success in our other subjects. Currently, as of today, we've got 23 kindergarten families that have pre-registered, and I'm saying pre-registered because we haven't committed to this program yet. We have 17 first grade families that have pre-registered. And I did want to share with you, Joe, would you help? I want to share with you some of the enthusiasm that I've had on the phone and through emails from parents. The one up here on the board came out of the survey that I put up. Parent says, having a secondary language provides a significant leg up for future jobs and helps kids learn about the world around them. As the second economy, China is a perfect choice for an immersion program, and the kids are much more likely to learn it well at this early age. Among our group of around 60 parents, there are bilingual parents, there are parents that travel to Asia routinely, there are parents that work for Asian companies, there are parents that grew up in Hong Kong or Europe and learned 2 or 3 languages. There was one parent that's bringing a kindergartner in. The pre-kindergartner already knows French, Spanish, and English. Already knows 3 languages, and the parent wants him to learn a 4th. This is very doable for kids. One of the questions we had on going up to Michigan was whether or not this model would stress out our kindergartners. And we saw happy children, just as if we were looking at our own classes. So I did want to direct you to the back page where the long list is. These are from the survey, and then this email that I got was indicative of a lot of the phone calls and emails that I've got. I want to read this to you. And I guess I'm highlighting this one because it highlights the difference that many people have felt when first hearing about Mandarin Immersion to researching it. Dear Andy, my husband and I are very excited about the proposed Mandarin Immersion program. Admittedly, I was skeptical when the program was announced. I really hadn't considered Chinese for my family. We're a French family, but my husband works for an Asian company and encouraged me to keep an open mind. After listening to you speak both at our elementary school and West Campus and doing my own research, I truly believe this is a great opportunity for our children and our community. As a speech-language pathologist, I can tell you that I think the age of the children is very appropriate. The earlier, the better. I appreciate that the program will probably start out focusing on the auditory and oral components of language. This approach ties into the way we all naturally learn language from infancy. And the key to the letter, I've attached my daughter's pre-registration form. So 23 kindergarten families so far, 17 first grade. We have our parent meetings coming up tomorrow night and Thursday, and it was really after that I expected to see most of our registrations. So I would expect that we'll have possibly up to as many as 10 more in each of these grade levels. So there's a tremendous amount of I won't say tremendous amount. The parents that are interested in this are very enthusiastic about it. Once registration closes February 25th, next Friday, we'll take a look at the numbers, we'll look at staffing, we'll look at the budget, we'll look at how we could roll this out, and we'll make a decision probably in early March. And I say decision, we'll make a recommendation to Dr. Griffith in early March. If it's a go, then spring we'll look at staffing, we'll look at kindergarten transition from Everett and Sheridan to Cherokee, and spring and summer we'll also do curriculum development. I've had an ongoing website up for the parents that are interested in this. I've been updating it with videos like the one that you saw, as well as the information that we've been gathering. And of course, I'm encouraging parents to contact me. Questions that you have?
Andy, it sounds like for children to participate, they need to begin in kindergarten. Is that right?
We're considering at this point beginning kindergarten and first grade for the first year. But right, Rick, after that we would hope that kids would start in kindergarten and have the experience through 4th grade. Incidentally, in the middle school, we're planning to have an advanced Mandarin class to continue these students' learning. So that's the plan for middle school, but no longer have an immersion half-day program.
Is there any data on how long it takes children to become fluent in Mandarin versus, say, Spanish or French? Or
Yes, Mandarin is considered a level 3 language, and as such, it is considered much more difficult than the other two for English speakers. Although, in getting to know the teachers and getting to know a little bit more about Mandarin, there are some very simple things about this language. There are no gender. There is no subject-verb agreement. There's no conjugating verbs. There is no plural of words. There are no names for months. There are no names for days. It's first day, second day, third day, first week, first month, second month, third month. Counting is much more simple. The difficulty of this language is that it has 4 tones. So you've probably heard the story ma, 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 and I can't even do it, but there are 4 ways to say the word ma, and one means mom, and one means horse, and a couple others, and you don't want to confuse those. So this is a perfect language for our kindergartners to start with, because as Joe was alluding to, the brain's plasticity or flexibility, the brain of a young child is tuned in to hearing language differently than we are at this stage in our lives. And that's why kids pick it up so much more quickly. So they will hear those tones that we may not very well, and they will develop near proficiency. Leading to your question, in Utah, several districts that have been doing this for a while, the ambassador to China is now the governor in Utah, so that's why Utah may be leading the states in this. They've been doing this for about 6 years, and their feedback is that around 4th grade, the kids start developing that thinking and speaking to each other. So that would be quite something, wouldn't it?
I have a question about, you had mentioned we would be applying for some grants, and how the timing fits with applying for those grants with our decision-making process.
We've applied for one grant back in January, and we should be hearing about that. We were supposed to hear about it, but then we had the snow date, so any day on that one. That's a $20,000 grant. There's a $40,000 to $50,000 grant that we won't apply for until May. There is a $10,000 to $20,000 grant from China that we'll apply for in mid-March, and then we've applied for a small materials grant for the Spirit. So the timing isn't tremendous. We could certainly hear any day about this first. The others will be into the summer. As far as the cost of this program, though, since we're looking at having students in a class with one teacher, it's kind of a one-to-one relationship with cost. So there won't be additional costs per se for this program, because the students need a teacher, be it an English or a Mandarin teacher. The cost for the program will be the startup, the development of curriculum, and the support for the new Mandarin teacher. One other thing to consider, though, is that we have a number of families that will be going to the full-day program because of this in kindergarten. And because of that, they'll be generating new money for the district through that full-day option fee that we charge, so that there will be some offset there. Thank you.
Andy, to what extent do you think the full-day kindergarten registration will increase based on this program so far? I know it's still early.
I've heard from at least 2 or 3 families that were not considering Lake Forest before they heard about this. We definitely have one family coming from Country Day. I heard from one mom from Glenview that heard about it through a colleague at Abbott that says she's going to move into the district if we do this. So there's been some excitement from families that would be joining our kindergarten because of this. Not a lot, but it's fun to hear about. Thank you.
Thank you, that was very informative.
All right, Andy, thank you. And board members, our next report's coming from Kyle Schumacher. This is an update on what's going on in our district with respect to the netbook initiative, and also a few words on our 2020 Vision project.
This is totally illegible to all of you looking at this, except you also have copies of this in your packet. I'd like to actually start. I think that the work that Andy and Joe talked about leads so nicely in to the 2020 Vision project that we are working on, and I'm excited, as I said, I think at the last board meeting, for this tri-district initiative that we have going. Attached in your files, but also that will be posted on the District 2020 Vision website tomorrow morning, is a list of the framework that was designed by the 3 districts. And this is our first iteration. This is what we're calling our working document that we want to move forward with. you will see that there are three major areas that are listed in here: personal and civil responsibility, learning and thinking skills, and communication literacies. And within each of these, then there are sub-areas under those that would fit really nicely into all of the areas that Andy just talked about and Joe talked about in regards to higher order thinking, creative thinking, looking at collaboration, curiosity, systems thinking, and all of those types of aspects that fit and develop from a global awareness based on what would be happening from an immersion program, but also the other work that we're doing at the elementary schools as the students are matriculating through from kindergarten through 12th grade. This was a very exciting project to work on, to see all of the districts come together, to see people take out the initial draft, take it back to their committees, to their groups, talk about it quite in depth, begin wordsmithing, begin saying, well, are these two things the same? Do we need to look at innovation and creativity as being the same type of idea? And we have condensed this into a much more pithy document, something that we think is you don't have to use a dictionary to look up the definitions, the words in the definitions, so that we can talk about and share and start having a common language about what 2020 vision is and what the 21st century skills are that we're preparing our students. So we wanted to open this up as an opportunity for you to, number one, to see. It will be going on the website. Respond with any questions. This really is the lens through which we view what we do. Developing skills in an intentional and purposeful way. And that's what this is about. It's not about throwing out everything. We're doing great things in both the 67, 65, and 115. There are things that we need to be more intentional about and more purposeful about in order to make sure that our students are best prepared for the future. And that's what we're using this document as that lens that we can look through our curricular areas, look through our math, look through our social studies, look through our science, and how are we incorporating these things. We've already started that as we've begun looking at our K-4 social studies curriculum to begin looking at project problem-based types of opportunities for students. We've looked at it as we're looking at science, some of the things that we're doing in science, and you obviously heard about some of the things that we're looking with our immersion program in world language. So that is just a little bit of a kickoff on what the 2020 vision document is, and I'll entertain any questions at this point, and if not, we're going to go on into the netbook pilot discussion, which is an actualization of many of these things.
So you can take your Friday spelling test? Nice. What are you guys working on?
Brain tumors and stuff. Netbooks. Starting after that, we're going to make a project.
Okay.
Might be a blog story.
And then where are you going to put those answers at? You even have nice writing for that. So did you have to use any paper? Did you have to use any pencils?
I am right now just to have the
Just in case to be safe. Okay.
chart that we made.
So you made a table?
Edmodo.
Edmodo, what are you doing on Edmodo?
Just answering 2 replies, and then I'm gonna make 1 post.
About a book?
Yeah, about the book that we're reading. Looking at deception.
Deception, because you know what it meant? Why did you need to know what deception meant?
Because it's in Edmodo for accounting.
Accounting. back and make, so what's your question for tonight? Is deception acceptable? And you weren't sure what the word deception meant, so you had to go in and look it up in dictionary.com?
Yes. I think that when I partner up with groups, it really helps me work because if I get a question wrong, they can help me understand it, or I help people learn too. So I like working with partners because I think it's easier to learn when you're having fun with a friend instead of just working by yourself. It makes 7 work, so it's like half. But instead of
So, you've got your table set up here. That you've got a little, what are you guys doing, like a little role play? That's your script. So how are you guys recording yourself? What are you guys using? Monster. Oh, I love it. That's awesome. Very creative. Did you guys come up with that idea on your own then? So would you say that with this project, leaving it open-ended helped you to use your creativity to really go farther with what you wanted to do with the project? Another way to do homework.
I like how you can get online textbooks on them and they're kind of easier to carry than having just real textbooks.
We like in math using the netbooks. Why though? Because it helps you like learn on the links. The links. Okay, so Math Mayhem, love it. What is Math Mayhem for someone who wouldn't know what that is?
It's a math gaming site.
It's like a gaming site. What are you doing on that gaming site?
You challenge your friends and other people in like math questions. I like that it doesn't only study paper. I like self-learning, like how we like go off and it's not like a teacher talking to us and people navigate.
Okay, so you like the independent, self-directed learning. You found that to be really beneficial. Annoying. So did that happen to you today as you were taking a test?
Yeah.
You clicked on the wrong answer and then...
I went through it and I corrected it.
Oh, good. So you had to go back and edit work then. So it teaches you to go back and really double check your answers.
I think it's more helpful that we're using the netbooks because I think it's easier to learn that way. I like for you to teach us because it's easier for us because if we don't understand something, we can just raise our hand.
Okay.
But it's also fun with computers because then you have to take a few minutes to figure it out, and when you figure it out, you're like kind of proud of yourself instead of just raising your hand and saying,
So that was an example of some of the work that is happening in some of our netbook classrooms. And the exciting part about that, if you saw a lot of this, the bouncing up and down and stuff, and I was watching it the first time last night, I'm going, oh, I'm getting seasick watching this. But that's a classroom where they're using the balls, and the Spirit of 67 Foundation had funded getting big exercise balls for different classrooms, and in this particular classroom, they're using those, and that's what you see is a lot of that energy, happening all throughout the day with the students, and they're not dropping their netbooks in there because of the bouncing balls, maybe for other reasons, but certainly not for that.
That's actually our next innovation for board meetings.
Because that should be really entertaining to watch, all of you bouncing on that. Hopefully you can all stay on them. I've asked for some of the teachers who are here, Ken Smith, Jennifer Kolar and Nancy Hafstrom. I'm going to have them stand up now. Just each of them to say just a couple of words about what this has done to their teaching in the classroom, what they've seen from students that they've been working on over the course of this year.
Okay, well, I've taught for 18 years, and I think right about the 16th year I became very comfortable with what I was doing. And then Kyle asked me to do this last year, so, which was probably the best thing that's ever happened. I entered the year very nervous about how it was going, a little type A. I tried to create all summer what was going to happen, and I realized you can't do that. So what I wanted to just express was probably two things that might be able to sum up in my little time here. One, what Elizabeth in the video there said about we don't waste a lot of paper. That's true. I think we've probably saved about a dozen acres of forest just on our own right here. Our Wednesday folders, which used to be Friday folders, but they're the take-home folders, there's nothing in them. There are a few things that come home from the office, but really most of the stuff is what we've created and the kids have created, and it's stored digitally. It's maybe in their Dropbox, their assignment notebooks. Today we were just filling them out, and they have their netbooks out, so that they're storing them in their netbook or in their Dropbox. They're looking at Edline more often. It's just it's amazing how little paper we're actually using. And the other thing I would say is that as far as like a typical day, there are no typical days. And so I will try to explain a typical day, which there are none. The first thing, for instance, in math today, the kids were hurrying through a lot of the things that I had with the traditional paper and pencil, just so they could get to the integer race, which was going to reinforce what I've been trying to teach about adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers. They were flying to get to that point, so classroom management was affected as well. Not only did we get done quicker, they were more efficient. And then when they got to that point, there was a little buzz in the room, so there's a little bit more noise, but at the same time, it's noise that is useful. I mean, they're talking amongst themselves and they're excited. And then we moved into LA, and in LA today, we wanted to talk about spelling. Well, there's no spelling book. We went to Spelling City. They did their spelling. There's a vocabulary component to it. And as we moved into writing today, we decided, well, we're working on persuasive essays. Well, they wrote their persuasive essay on OpenOffice, and they stored it in a digital locker for me to go and grade, which I graded 30 on Saturday, and then I could write little notes back to them, and then they could open it up and change them. No paper, once again. And then in LA, or in social studies, a good example would be they walk in, they open up their netbook, they begin with the questions that I've already uploaded. They respond to those, and then we set aside last week a lesson on ancient Greece just so we could talk about what was going on in Egypt at the time. We studied ancient Egypt. Well, modern day Egypt had some pretty incredible things happening. And only minutes after Mubarak had stepped down, we were able to go ahead and go right on CNN and look at some videos, go right to our world newspaper sites, and the kids were pulling up newspapers out of Egypt. So it was pretty powerful, the things we could do, which in the past just wouldn't have been possible.
I'm Jennifer Kolar. I just wanted to say I was lucky that 4 years ago I was able to participate at the district's master's program for instructional technology through Northern Illinois University, and I felt so lucky at the end of last year when I found out I would get to use that to teach this pilot, because I've always loved school, and this year I really feel like my students love it as much as I do. One of my favorite comments is by a young man who was in the movie named Chris, who said, I guess it was somewhere in December, kind of after all the craziness was over, because like Ken said, no days are ever alike. Even though we have a routine, there's so much to do, there's so much excitement because the students are so excited about their education this year. But the young man said to me, Mrs. Kolar, have you ever noticed how these days just fly by? And that's how I feel my students feel every day, because they're actively involved in what they're doing. Like one of the little girls said in the movie, in math, we don't want to sit and listen to the teacher talk all period. So I've happily accepted my role this year as a planner and a facilitator, and that truly is what a classroom looks like. That wasn't scripted. that's what the classroom would look like any day you might walk in.
Nancy Hafstrom, and I'm also part of the team that get to pilot the netbooks, and I have also had a wonderful, fascinating experience with the students. I think the item that really I'd like to add to them is the difference between project and process. We're doing both of them in 5th grade, and for the first time, I really see a huge teamwork environment enhanced by the netbooks today in science. They had a project-based project that they were working on, and for them, you can just step back and you can see them asking each other questions. And some of the students who would never speak if I was just standing up in class giving a teaching episode, they would never say anything, but in this particular environment, they were teaching the rest of their team on how to use the various components that they needed to complete the project, and it was really awesome to see.
We could literally go on for another 2 hours with comments about things that are happening in the classroom, the challenges that we've had, the challenges that we've overcome, the challenges yet to overcome with things. Some of those are listed in the document that we put in front of you, which I think is a 3-page document. That too will be posted on the 2020 Vision website. We're excited about this opportunity. What's exciting is that the 4 teachers, Amy Lamberti was unable to be here tonight, and Laura Montgomery, who put the video together, but also has been a driving force behind this with the teachers, was unable to be here tonight, but have been just instrumental to the success of this. And what has been exciting is to see the enthusiasm build among their colleagues as well. I had some teachers who were just really not happy that they weren't the ones chosen for this. I mean, we hand-selected 4 teachers who I knew would be flexible in this, would listen to me say no and yes and do this type of thing. And we have wonderful teachers in the district, and they're now they're wanting to do this. They're seeing this. We've already started training. We were sort of a serendipity, I suppose. We had another webinar scheduled 2 weeks ago, which kind of went haywire. Well, it allowed the 5th grade teachers, and this group pulled together and said, hey, we'll get together and we're going to work with the 5th grade teachers on what we're doing with netbooks. And within 25 minutes, 30 minutes, this group got together and reformatted, created a professional development opportunity for the afternoon that was just could not have been planned any better. We're actually going to replicate that again with 5th grade teachers and also with our 6th grade teachers as we move forward. So what I'm excited about is seeing all of these things coming together. Andy was talking about sort of the momentum for the immersion has happened, in sort of a quick process. This has been about a 6-year process in getting to this point. And the immersion kind of fits right into that. It fits right in as we look at global awareness, as we look at connecting children to the world beyond and learning another language, and as they're using the technologies and more increasing ways to become more collaborative as they grow and develop through our system. We've been visiting a couple of schools. We have visited a couple years ago Avoca. This past week we went to Northbrook District 27 and looked at a netbook program that they have just instituted this year. We've actually been working with them. They were part of our cohort that we did with the master's program through NIU. They joined us here for that. I also went with them when they went up to Canada, to Eastern Township Board about 5 years ago to look at their programs up in east of Montreal. We have a teacher who just came back from High Tech High School in San Diego. She was out there on another trip. And I said, she's like, it's already paid for. Can I go, spend another day and go down to this high-tech high school? Went down there, Susie O, our ILI at Everett School. She emailed me this morning. She says, oh my gosh, it was just fantastic to see what kids are doing in a collaborative environment. And it's not all about the computers. It's just about a whole new learning environment. We have some teachers who are right now down at Catalina Foothills Schools in Tucson area. We're fortunate that we have one of our former teachers who is actually working in that district, and we have one of our administrators whose cousins go to school in that district. So we found out we have quite a tie to Catalina Foothills District. And you've heard me mention that before. It's a district that worked with Materi Group, which is one of the Partnership for 21st Century Skills businesses that has worked with them. They're also looking at an international baccalaureate school, which is exciting because that's another thing that we can begin looking at as a vehicle for delivering 21st century or 2020 vision skills. We have another teacher who will be going in April to a school out in Iowa, and we think, Iowa, they built a ball field there, but they also built some pretty cool schools that are really connecting with their 21st century skills within the curriculum, and it's a media specialist who works there who has a blog that Patty Fleeser has been reading quite a bit about, and so we want to go take a look at that school as well. So it's exciting to see the things that we've been looking at and studying and to see where we're at and continuing to move forward with this project.
Questions?
Kyle, it sounds very positive. Have there been any stumbling blocks, even like technological, like I dropped my laptop, the equivalent of the dog ate my homework, or anything like that? Any big challenges as we look on moving forward, that and how you've...
I think there's a couple of challenges, and they're exciting challenges because they're ones that you expect. We live with these digital natives, and that, oh my gosh, they're going to come in and be able to just sit down and use a computer. And Ken probably summed it up best, but they all felt it, was that, wow, they can do it, but they don't know how to use it as a tool. They can go on and they can, do a Facebook, or they can do an email, or they can do this, but they don't know how to use it as a tool all the time. And that was the struggle at the beginning of the year of figuring out, okay, how much time do we need to spend to do some of these things, front end load some of those. So that was a challenge initially. It's not anymore. The kids are getting that. They're teaching the teachers things, and the teachers are teaching them things. It's this great back and forth relationship. We've had some that have dropped. They're kids, Of course, that's a different attitude than I sometimes take when I'm emailed that week. But the reality is that they do drop. Something happens to them. And we've taken care of that. The good thing has been is there's not been a maliciousness with them. They've been treating them with respect. We have cases that they carry around. We talked to Northbrook last week, and we did find out that, yes, they've dropped theirs at times. And so those are just things that you have. We've had to adjust some things infrastructure-wise and putting more access points for wireless. Those are things that we found along the way. The good thing is that we're going to be ahead of the game as we start implementing, in 5th and 6th grade, which is our goal for next year, because we've learned a lot by doing a pretty intense pilot this year.
Thank you.
So can you share a little bit, so the goal, right now there's 4 classrooms in the 5th grade.
Right now there are 4 classrooms in the 5th grade, and you heard from 3 of our teachers, and Amy Lamberti is the 4th. What we're looking at doing, the goal would be to have all 5th grade and all 6th graders next year be issued a netbook for their use in a one-to-one situation. We've been working on the training with that from the professional development standpoint, basically starting a couple weeks ago, though we've had some earlier things with that, and then moving forward with that. Part of it is looking at the fact of, we've got these 4 5th grade classrooms. They need to maintain those technologies as they move into 6th grade and 7th grade and 8th grade, so we need to do that. But we also have 6th grade teachers who are now ready to take that next step as well.
Okay, and then along with that, then the infrastructure would also need to be upgraded.
There are some tweaks to the infrastructure. The good thing is that when we did the upgrades this year for the new phone systems and the other things that were in place, the fiber, the new routers, all of those big other techno terms, a lot of that was taken care of this year. So really the big thing that we would need to look at this year, and we've already talked with Jen Hermes and Cornelius DeBose, is really putting access points in the rooms at a more consistent rate. Again, we've looked at some different schools that are doing this. Some have them in every room, some have them placed more strategically. That's the biggest infrastructure change that needs to be made, because fortunately a lot of that was taken care of with this last year's changes.
Is the idea that the netbooks would be owned by the students, paid for by the students and kept, or would they be owned by the school?
I think that's an area that we're looking at. What is the best way to be able to finance something like this? Is it best to do that in some ways that we can incorporate that within what we're doing within the school? Is it best to look at ways of offsetting that with other types of fees either paid by parents? At the same time that we're looking at cutting down some other opportunities for parent fees. We're looking at supply list and cutting some things down there.
Yeah, so I think the goal, Rick, is for this to be the student's tool, personal tool. And Kyle's talking about we're going to be a little creative in how to cobble together the resources for parents to do this, including not doing some other fee-based things. There's the Spirit that we have a grant for, so it's going to be a potpourri of things that we can cobble together to put this into the hands of each student at a very reasonable price. Of course, for a family that's really struggling financially, and we do have families like that, we have a process and a method for assisting those families also. Okay, so let me just say I guess everybody, Ken, Jennifer, Nancy, and out there in the distance somewhere is Amy. Thank you all. Wonderful job. Great job. Let's thank them for coming. Kyle, good job.
Thank you.
Now, as always, you're certainly welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. Ken, Jennifer, Nancy, it's really exciting, but if it were me, I'd probably use this as an opportunity to slip out too. So don't worry about that. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was very, very interesting to hear that perspective. Thank you. That concludes our reports section, and we move on to board committee reports. The Board of Education Committee, Chris Rossman and Sally McDonald.
The Education Committee has not met since our last board meeting. The next 67 Education Committee meeting will be on Monday, March 14th. This will be a regular kind of meeting as well as a workshop that will be focusing on goals, and we'll continue our discussion on the two topics that were presented tonight as part of the reports. That concludes the Education Committee.
Thank you, Chris. The Board Operations Committee, Lori Rose and John Julian.
The Board Operations Committee has not met since our last meeting. Our next meeting is tomorrow morning at 8:30 here, at which point we will consider board goals like the Education Committee, and I expect to have a more robust report for you next month.
Thank you, Lori. The Board Finance Committee, Jeff Pendersky and Rick Schuler.
The Finance Committee did meet a week ago on February 15th. We started with Dr. Griffith, who led a discussion regarding admission of tuition-based students. It was really just a preliminary discussion, but the takeaway was that there's an open-mindedness to this, at least trying it out. Next, Alan gave a brief update on the 2010 and 11 committee goals. A draft of proposed goals for 2011 and 2012 was also discussed. 2012 teacher and support staff negotiations was a key part of this. In addition, North Suburban and Special Education District assessments is a primary goal, and plan to identify and develop alternative revenue sources was also discussed. The committee discussed and endorsed these proposed goals. Jennifer updated the committee on the budget development calendar. The mid-year projections will be rotated into the 5-year projection soon. The new budgets will be presented by the by department and school in April, and a tentative budget will be presented to the Board of Education in May or June. By the way, the tentative budget will remain on display for 30 days after that point. Jennifer also presented a detailed overview of year-end projections. She reported that revenues are down in several areas, including interest on deposits, which is not a surprise. And also there's the elimination of some of the grants. The expenditure summary reflected the foresight of the district and the start of the economic downturn, meaning our expenses were cut back, and on a net basis, we had a positive variance. Last, Dr. Griffith reported that student fees have not been increased the past 2 years and will not be increased next year. And that concludes the Finance Committee report.
Thank you very much, Rick. This brings us to the district committees in which we are liaisons. First, North Suburban Special Education District and Chris Rossman.
The NSSED board, as a governing board, does not meet in February, so we've not met since our last board meeting. The next NSSED governing board meeting is Wednesday, March 9th, and that begins at 7 o'clock, and I believe Mr. Pendersky will be co-attending with me as we make the transition.
Thank you, Chris. I actually had a brief question in looking at withdrawing from NSSED and the process that we are going through. My understanding is, Dr. Griffith had mentioned to me there is a task force that has been created. And I just wanted to make sure that Dr. Julie Cooley is here, that our community was aware that we had created a task force.
Thank you for bringing that up, and good evening to you, all of you. Yes, we've had a task force that is in place and has been quite active. Our action plan for the task force has been posted on the web for a while now. We've also formed a parent advisory committee who met for the first time last Wednesday and will meet again in March and April, and then perhaps after that. What we've been doing, some best practice research, review of literature. We're starting to do some site visits. We've looked more at the financials, try fine-tune that, looking at our student projections on the types of programming and types of things we'd need. So we're actually meeting on a regular basis, at least twice monthly, and more as needed, to continue the work of the committee and hope to get some recommendations to you, perhaps May, June, that kind of thing.
That's it, and that, some of that work comes back through the Education Committee as well, so it all ties together. So thank you, Julie.
Thank you very much for that update. Let's see, we are Illinois Association of School Boards and Ed Red, John Julian.
Yes, on January 31st, the Ed Red organization held its annual legislative dinner at the Chicago Marriott Hotel. I attended along with Sally McDonald. And as you may know, attendees at this event include representatives from school districts around the state legislators, and members of many private companies which provide support to Illinois' educational system. The keynote speaker for the evening was Charles Rose. Mr. Rose is the General Counsel for the U.S. Department of Education. Mr. Rose focused his comments on modifications to the theme of No Child Left Behind. It was Mr. Rose's view that while well-intentioned, this policy really was too much of a one-size-fits-all kind of policy, and the concept really is not the best model for optimizing education results. He indicated that the current administration was hoping to modify their policies to develop a program whereby schools performing at different levels could actually be treated differently, which is unlike what's taking place today. He felt that the top-performing schools should be rewarded for their results, and the middle schools should be incentivized to improve their results, while the lower-performing tier of schools should probably be helped more with federal assistance to help them achieve better results. In addition, he acknowledged that the economy of the last few years has greatly challenged education across the board, but he was optimistic that better times were ahead. It was certainly my impression that his comments were very well received in the audience. There was a sense that many people agreed with his thoughts of the No Child Left Behind policy, and I think the entire speech was well received. So it was a very, very good event. Very, very interesting. That concludes the Ed Red ISB report.
Thank you, John. This brings us to professional development. And Jeff Pendersky, who is not here this evening, so we will hold that report until next month. The Curriculum Coordinating Committee and Lori Rose.
The Curriculum Coordinating Committee met last Thursday, the 17th of February, and our sole topic of discussion was the Mandarin Immersion program. We had a very enthusiastic discussion. Many points of view were raised, most of which were covered by Mr. Henriksen. I'd like to thank Andy Henriksen and Joe Malin and all the members of the administration and staff who worked so hard to bring the research to the board and the community. This is a new initiative and something very different from what we've been doing, so that the voluminous research and care and effort that's gone into the program, traveling around the country and around the world, is very much appreciated by myself and the board. As we move forward, I would encourage members of the community to log on and see the latest news on this effort, and also to attend meetings and have your questions answered. This concludes the Curriculum Coordinating Committee report.
Thank you, Lori. And now we have the Spirit of 67 Foundation. And Sandra Ryan is the president of the Spirit of 67 Foundation, and she had wanted to be here tonight to address everyone in person, but given the late time, I will do so on her behalf. In January, Sunset Foods began a program called Nickels for Nature, where for every reusable bag brought into Sunset, 5 cents will go to the Spirit of 67 Foundation and the Lake Forest High School Foundation. This is one of the first joint programs between the two foundations. Sunset will cut a check monthly and split the money between the two foundations. This is another community project between the Spirit and the local community. This past summer, the Spirit implemented our Spirit Card, and it was a big success, and it really showed a partnership between the local community, the local businesses, and the Spirit of 67 Foundation. As Dr. Griffith mentioned in the superintendent's report, the Spirit's annual home tour will be held on Thursday, May 5th. And in honor of Lake Forest's 150th celebration, they have secured 2 historical homes, which are being kept secret, that are going to be toured, along with 2 other homes. We are very excited about the opportunity to be part of this very special celebration. And that concludes the Spirit of 67 Foundation report. This brings us to the Tri-District Committee, Julia Wolt and John Julian.
Yes, the meeting that was originally scheduled for February 14th was postponed. Essentially, we wanted to wait until the Tri-District Committee's ad hoc committee working on the 2020 Vision Project got together. They have now met, and we're waiting for a new scheduled date. So,
Thank you, John. Let's see, Sally McDonald and the Policy Committee.
Yes, just a brief update on the Policy Committee. The Policy Committee met on January 28th. We reviewed many potential policy changes, and which came mainly as from the Illinois Association of School Boards as either changes to be consistent with the law or recommended changes from IASB. We'll have the recommended changes to bring before the board next month. That concludes the report of the Policy Committee.
Thank you, Sally. And I'm going to add a report under Other. There was a Frantic Radlet conference, and I can't remember the date, but Sally McDonald, Harry Griffith, and myself attended. There were a couple of District 115 board members, and I personally always find that particular conference very informative. It was January 29th, thank you. I attended a seminar on negotiating teacher contracts in tough economic times, an update on changes to special education laws that have occurred both federally and Illinois state law, and one other that is escaping me right now, but in the future, board members, if you have the opportunity to attend, it is a Saturday most of your day, but it is very informative. So that concludes that report and brings us to our recommendations. Dr. Griffith?
Okay, board members, annually we bring before you a calendar stretching out further than just the year ahead of us. So we've gotten onto a 2-year cycle. So Mr. Schumacher is responsible for this in the district involving teachers and parents, and Kyle's here tonight to give you our collective recommendation for you. Kyle, thank you.
Dr. Griffith and board, thank you. We did meet with the APT representatives, SEIU, and LFEA representatives, along with sharing this with staff at district staff meetings. Each of the representatives are responsible for that, as well as discussing this administratively. We are proposing the following calendar that was in your board packets for the 2012-2013 school year, so not next year, but the year following. Very similar to our previous calendars. The one major difference, if we call it a major difference, is that as opposed to 3 institute days at the very beginning of the year, we're going to 2 institute days at the beginning of the year. We've done 3 for the past several years. It's worked out well, but we're finding that we want to actually have one in the year with some of the initiatives and things we're working on. It will provide some more time to meet, and we're looking at adding a January time. This fits in well with the high school calendar, as they also have either a teacher work day or no school on that particular day, so we've tried to align those, which the parent community said is best for them if either have all the kids in school or have them all out. That's kind of the sentiment. Holidays stay around the same time. as well as the breaks, spring break, which is always the last week that has a Tuesday of March. So this is the calendar that would be proposed for the 2012-2013 school year.
Any questions? I'm thinking we do have to amend the current calendar due to the blizzard. Will that be another?
Yeah, Julia, let me say it's a separate matter from the actual approval of this calendar, but yes, it turns out that pigs did fly over Lake Forest 2 consecutive days. I have to say it was actually the easiest weather decision I've ever made. So it actually was really, really obvious what needed to happen. But the bad news for our students and our faculty is that we do have to attach 2 days at the end of the year. Do we have those dates for us?
We would have been out on Thursday, June, whatever.
Board members, we're going to come back.
We'll go to the
in
Monday.
March. We want to wait till the end of March because hypothetically, and really hypothetically, it's possible they could fly again, but it's extremely unlikely. It just could happen. So we want to wait, and then we'll amend the calendar to add 2 days at the very end. So that'll be in either the March or April board meeting.
Thank you. Any questions on this particular, on the 2012 calendar? And as Dr. Griffith pointed out, he will not be here to enjoy that schedule.
I have a question, Kyle. It seems to me, I'm not 100% sure about this, but that we have fewer parent conference days than we've had. Haven't we usually had 2?
No, they're the same. If you look in November, it's the same. The way that we've done it this year is there's a full day of school on the 19th, and then conferences are that evening, and then on the 20th is a full day of conferences, giving us Wednesday off. It's the same number of days. They've just been reallocated, and because it's a full day of school on the 19th, we don't have to call it a parent-teacher conference day.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the calendar, the district calendar for 2012 to 2013?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. This brings us to our consent agenda items. We have the approval of minutes for a regular and executive session on January 25th, 2011, the approval of disbursements, payrolls, and the financial statement for January 2011. The January disbursements totaled $1,890,013.93. January 2011 payrolls totaled $1,421,419.35. The January 2011 financial report. We have the approval of human resources items, including leave requests, new staff approval, approval of retirements and status changes. And we have the destruction of audio recordings from January 27th, 2009 and March 24th, 2009. Is there any item that a board member would like removed for further discussion?
Julia, if I could just quickly point out to the board that Alan and Jennifer both asked me if it was necessary to be here tonight because there was no action item other than the financials, and I am able to answer literally any question you could even remotely think of regarding financials. So I told them that they didn't need to be here tonight, and I'm ready for any little test. So anybody want to try one? I'll show you. I'll give you my answer. Because my answer, no matter what the question would be, we'll get back to you. But I told them that you wouldn't mind that they could go ahead and have the evening off for this.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. McDonald?
Aye.
Mr. Pendersky's absent. Mrs. Rose?
Aye.
Mrs. Rossman?
Aye.
Mr. Schuler?
Aye.
Mrs. Wold?
Aye.
Mr. Julian?
Aye.
Motion carries.
FOIA requests, we did have 7 requests this past month. The executive session was not held today, and nor will one be held after the meeting. Future agenda items, is there any topic that a board member would like on a next month's agenda? Seeing none, we move to announcements. Saturday, February 26th, is the Spirit of 67 Family Appreciation Night at the Discovery World Museum in Milwaukee from 6:30 to 10 p.m. Again, I would like to encourage anyone who is a member of the Spirit to attend. On Thursday, March 3rd, we have parent-teacher conferences with a half-day student attendance. And on Friday, March 4th, we have parent-teacher conferences, so there will be no school on that date. Tuesday, March 22nd will be our next Board of Education meeting. That will begin at 7 p.m., and it will be here. Friday, March 25th is spring break, beginning at the close of the school day. On Monday, April 4th, school will reopen. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.